23-year-old Carly Brennan had learned early in life that invisibility was a survival skill. In the gleaming marble halls of the Westfield estate, she perfected it. She moved through rooms like a whisper, collecting abandoned coffee cups, straightening throw pillows, erasing any evidence of human mess before the family even noticed it existed. But there was one person in that massive house who saw her, really saw her, and that changed everything. 8-year-old Mia Westfield didn't speak. She didn't look people in the eyes. She didn't respond to her name being called, even when her mother's voice grew sharp with frustration. But when Carly entered a room, something shifted. Mia's fingers would still mid-stim. Her rocking would slow. And sometimes, just sometimes, her gaze would flicker toward Carly's face for half a second before darting away. Carly noticed. And unlike everyone else in that house, she didn't look away. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Carly had been working at the Westfield estate in Atherton, California for 11 months, when she first realized she was the only person who actually liked Mia. Not loved, not tolerated, liked. It was a Wednesday morning in late September, and Carly was polishing the endless row of windows in the sunroom when she heard the familiar sound of Mia's specialized shoes squeaking against the hardwood. The little girl appeared in the doorway, her dark curls pulled into 2 tight braids that her mother, Vanessa Westfield, insisted made her look presentable. Mia clutched a worn stuffed rabbit, gray, missing one eye with ears that had been chewed into stiff points. "Good morning, Mia," Carly said softly, not expecting a response. She never did. Mia stood completely still, her body angled away but her presence unmistakable. She began humming, a low, repetitive tune that Carly had learned was Mia's version of the lullaby from some cartoon she watched on loop. Carly kept wiping the windows, giving Mia space. This was their routine. Mia would appear, hover nearby, hum or rock or tap her rabbit's ears against her chin, and Carly would simply exist alongside her. No demands, no expectations, no forced eye contact or chipper voices asking questions Mia couldn't answer. After 5 minutes, Mia sat down on the floor, cross-legged, and began arranging a collection of small pebbles she'd smuggled in from the garden. She lined them up by size, her movements precise and ritualistic. "Those are really nice," Carly murmured. "You got them in perfect order." Mia didn't respond, but her humming grew a little louder. Carly had learned that was Mia's way of saying she'd heard. The moment shattered when Vanessa's heels clicked into the room. "Mia, what are you doing on the floor? You're getting your dress dirty." Vanessa's voice was tight, controlled. She looked exhausted in the way wealthy women often did, flawless makeup barely concealing the desperation underneath. "Come on, sweetie. We have your ABA session in 20 minutes. Mia's humming stopped abruptly. Her whole body went rigid. "Mia, now!" Vanessa's patience was already threadbare. Carly watched as Mia's hands began to flap rapidly at her sides, a sign Carly had learned meant distress. But Vanessa just sighed and reached down to take Mia's arm. "Don't touch the rocks." The words burst out of Carly before she could stop herself. Vanessa froze, her hand inches from Mia's careful arrangement. Her eyes snapped to Carly with the kind of look that reminded her exactly where she stood in this household. "Excuse me?" Carly's heart hammered. "I just mean she worked really hard on lining them up. Maybe we could leave them just for today?" The silence stretched like taffy. Then Vanessa straightened, her expression smoothing into something polite and cold. "Carly, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but Mia needs structure, routine. Her therapists have been very clear about not reinforcing these compulsive behaviors." Carly wanted to say that the pebbles weren't compulsive, they were communication. That Mia wasn't being defiant, she was terrified. But she was 23 years old, she made $18 an hour, and she needed this job. So she nodded and went back to wiping windows that were already clean. Vanessa somehow coaxed Mia out of the room, leaving the pebbles scattered across the floor. Carly waited until their footsteps faded, then carefully collected each stone and placed them in a small ceramic dish on the windowsill where Mia could find them. Later, the Westfield estate was the kind of place that appeared in architectural magazines with captions, like modern luxury meets timeless elegance. 16,000 square feet of cool white walls, statement chandeliers, and furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. Marcus Westfield, Mia's father, had made his fortune in medical technology, something involving AI-driven diagnostic, tools that Carly didn't fully understand but knew had made him incredibly wealthy by age 40. Carly had grown up in a two-bedroom apartment in Stockton where the water heater only worked half the time. She'd applied for the housekeeping position through an agency after dropping out of community college when her mom got sick. The pay was decent, the work was steady, and it kept her mom's medical bills from drowning them both. She'd expected the job to be straightforward. Clean, stay quiet, stay invisible. She hadn't expected Mia. The little girl haunted the edges of the house like a ghost. Present but never fully there, her parents hired an army of specialists, behavioral therapists, speech pathologists, occupational therapists, a nutritionist who specialized in selective eating disorder. But Carly rarely saw any of them interact with Mia as a person. They interacted with her as a project. Vanessa was constantly researching new interventions, new diets, new therapy protocols. She spoke about Mia's diagnosis, autism spectrum disorder, level 3, nonverbal, the way other mothers might discuss a chronic illness that needed aggressive treatment. Marcus was simply absent. He left for the office before Mia woke and returned after she was in bed. On weekends, he retreated to his home gym or his study, doors closed. Carly had heard him on the phone once telling someone, "I love my daughter, but I have no idea how to connect with her. It's like she's on a different planet." Carly thought that was the saddest thing she'd ever heard, because Mia wasn't on a different planet. She was right here. She just needed someone willing to learn her language. It was a Friday afternoon when everything began to shift. Carly was folding laundry in the utility room when she heard a crash from the kitchen, followed by Vanessa's sharp intake of breath. She rushed in to find Mia sitting on the floor, surrounded by shattered glass, a drinking glass that had apparently slipped from the counter. Mia was rocking violently, her hands pressed over her ears, eyes squeezed shut. Vanessa stood frozen, her hand covering her mouth. "I don't know what to do. She won't let me touch her. She'll hurt herself on the glass." Carly moved carefully, kneeling a few feet away from Mia. "Hey, Mia, I know that sound was really scary, really loud, but you're safe. Can you hear my voice?" Mia's rocking didn't stop, but her fingers loosened slightly over her ears. "I'm going to clean up the glass now, okay? I'll be really quiet, really careful. You just sit right there." Carly kept her voice low and steady, narrating each movement as she swept the shards into a dustpan. "Almost done. Just a few more pieces. There we go. All gone." Slowly, so slowly, Mia's rocking subsided. Her hands dropped to her lap. Her breathing evened out. Carly sat back on her heels. "You did such a good job keeping yourself safe." "That was really brave." Mia's eyes flickered up for just a moment, maybe half a second, and met Carly's. It was the first time. Vanessa's voice came out small, almost wounded. "How did you do that?" Carly didn't know how to explain it. That she'd been watching Mia for months. That she'd noticed the patterns. What made her shrink, what made her hum, what made her hands flutter with something that looked almost like joy. That she'd started reading articles late at night in her tiny studio apartment, searching things like how to help nonverbal autistic children and autism communication strategies. "I just paid attention," Carly said finally. Vanessa stared at her for a long moment, something complicated passing across her face. Then she smoothed her expression and left the kitchen without another word. But something had changed. Carly could feel it. That night, alone in her apartment, Carly sat cross-legged on her bed with her laptop open. She'd been down this rabbit hole before, but tonight she dove deeper. She read about sensory processing differences, about echolalia, about stimming as a form of self-regulation rather than something to be eliminated. And then she found it. A certificate program in autism support therapy. Evening classes, 10 weeks, offered at a community center in San Jose, just 40 minutes away. The cost made her stomach drop. $800. She absolutely didn't have, but when she closed her eyes, she saw Mia's face in that moment when their eyes had met. She saw the trust there, the connection. Carly opened her banking app and looked at the number. She thought about her mom's next specialist appointment. She thought about her car's check engine light that had been on for 3 weeks. Then she clicked enroll and entered her debit card information. Before she could talk herself out of it, the confirmation email arrived instantly. Welcome to Foundations in Autism Support Therapy. Classes begin Monday, October 2nd. Carly stared at the screen, her heart pounding with equal parts terror and determination. She had no idea how she'd manage the schedule, how she'd hide this from the Westfields, how she'd stay awake after working 10-hour days. But Mia deserved someone who understood her, and Carly was going to become that person. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The community center in San Jose smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. Carly arrived 15 minutes early for her first class, her hands trembling as she clutched a notebook she'd bought at the dollar store. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a harsh, exposing glow that made her feel like an imposter. She'd told Vanessa she needed to adjust her schedule. Family obligations, she'd said vaguely. Vanessa had barely looked up from her phone when she'd approved the change. Carly would now work from 6 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, then race across 2 counties to make it to class by 4:30. The classroom was small, with 20 mismatched chairs arranged in a semicircle. Carly chose a seat in the back corner, hoping to blend into the walls the way she did at the Westfield estate. Other students filtered in, mostly women, ranging from their early 20s to their 60s. A woman with silver hair and kind eyes sat beside Carly and introduced herself as Patricia, a grandmother hoping to better understand her autistic grandson. Across the circle, a young man named James explained he was a special education teacher looking to expand his skills. Everyone seemed to belong here. Everyone except Carly. The instructor arrived exactly at 4:30. Dr. Helen Kozloff was probably in her 50s, with short grey hair and an intensity that filled the room immediately. She wore a lanyard with multiple credentials and moved with the efficiency of someone who didn't waste time on pleasantries. Welcome to Foundations in Autism Support Therapy, Dr. Kozloff began, her voice firm but not unkind. Before we start, I need to make something clear. This is not about fixing anyone. Autism is not a disease. It's a neurological difference, and our job, should you choose to work with autistic individuals, is to understand their world, not force them into ours. Carly's pen hovered over her blank notebook. Those words felt like permission for something she hadn't known she needed. Dr. Kozloff continued, "In this course, you'll learn about sensory processing, communication alternatives, co-regulation techniques, and how to presume competence even when someone cannot speak. You'll unlearn much of what society has taught you about autism." The first lesson shattered everything Carly thought she understood. Dr. Kozloff explained that behaviors Carly had heard Vanessa's therapists describe as problematic, hand-flapping, rocking, avoiding eye contact, were actually coping mechanisms. Stimming, she learned, was how autistic people regulated their nervous systems in an overwhelming world. "Imagine," Dr. Kozloff said, walking slowly around the circle, "that every sound is turned up to maximum volume. That fluorescent lights feel like strobe lights directly into your brain. That certain textures on your skin feel like being scraped with sandpaper. That someone's perfume is so strong it makes you nauseous. Now imagine living like that every single day and being told you're the problem when you try to cope." Carly's throat tightened. She thought about Vanessa pulling Mia away from her pebbles. about the ABA therapist she'd once seen making Mia sit with her hands folded, refusing to let her stim until she completed a task. Many traditional therapies, Dr. Kozlov continued, her voice taking on an edge, focus on making autistic children appear normal. They suppress stims. They force eye contact. They use compliance-based training that doesn't actually teach communication. It teaches masking. And masking comes at an enormous psychological cost. Patricia raised her hand. So what should we do instead? We meet them where they are, Dr. Kozlov said simply. We learn to communicate in ways that work for them. We modify the environment, not the child. We presume competence always. And we remember that non-speaking doesn't mean non-thinking. Those last words echoed in Carly's mind for the rest of the evening. By the time Carly got home that night, it was past 8. Her studio apartment was dark and cold. She heated up a cup of ramen and sat on her bed, reviewing the handouts Dr. Kozlov had distributed. One page outlined the principles of neurodiversity-affirming practice. Another explained the difference between communication and speech. A third detailed sensory profiles and how to identify triggers. Carly read until her eyes burned. She thought about Mia's rabbit, how she rubbed the ears between her fingers when she was anxious. She thought about the humming, the pebbles, the way Mia's whole body would tense when Vanessa tried to hug her. These weren't random behaviors. They were communication. Carly grabbed her phone and opened the Notes app. She began documenting everything she'd observed about Mia over the past 11 months. Covers ears before loud sounds happen. Dishwasher. Blender vacuum. Lines up objects by size and color. Hums when comfortable. Goes silent when stressed. Avoids eye contact but watches people through peripheral vision. Stims more when mother is nearby. Calmer in the morning. More overwhelmed by evening, only eats foods that are beige or white, seeks deep pressure, squeezes into small spaces. The list went on. Page after page of observations Carly hadn't realized she'd been collecting. She was beginning to understand Mia's language. Now she needed to learn how to speak it. The next morning at the Westfield estate, Carly moved through her tasks with new awareness. She noticed things she'd overlooked before. The way the kitchen's pendant lights flickered almost imperceptibly, how the air conditioning system made a high-pitched whine, how Vanessa's perfume lingered in rooms long after she'd left. Mia appeared in the doorway of the dining room where Carly was cleaning, her rabbit tucked under one arm. She stood in her characteristic way, body angled sideways, weight shifting from foot to foot. "Morning, Mia," Carly said, keeping her voice soft and even. Then, remembering Dr. Kozlov's lesson about presuming competence, she added, "I'm almost done with the table. Then I'll do the chairs. The spray bottle makes a squirting sound, just so you know it's coming." Mia's rocking slowed slightly. She moved into the room and sat in her usual spot by the window, arranging a new collection of items she'd gathered, this time acorns and small twigs. Carly narrated her work quietly, giving Mia predictability. When she finished, she said, "All done. The room smells like lemon now. I'm heading to the kitchen next." She was halfway out when she heard it, so quiet she almost missed it. A hum, but different. It had a questioning lilt at the end. Carly turned back. Mia was looking at the ceramic dish on the windowsill, the one where Carly had saved the pebbles from last week. "Oh," Carly said, understanding flooding through her. "You want to know if the pebbles are still there?" Mia's humming intensified. Not random, intentional. Carly walked to the windowsill and picked up the dish, carrying it over to where Mia sat. "They're all here, all safe. You can have them if you want." Mia's hands reached out, not for the dish, but hovering near Carly's wrist. Not touching, but close. It lasted only a second before Mia pulled back and began arranging the pebbles alongside her new collection. Carly's eyes burned with unexpected tears. This was communication, real, genuine connection. She thought about the $800 she'd charged to her nearly maxed credit card, about the exhaustion that already lived in her bones and would only get worse over the next 10 weeks. about the risk of the Westfields discovering what she was doing. None of it mattered. She was learning Mia's language. And Mia was starting to trust her. The weeks began to blur together. Carly would wake at 5, arrive at the Westfield estate by 6, work until 3, then drive like hell to make it to class by 4:30. Dr. Kozlov's lessons grew more complex. They learned about augmentative and alternative communication, about interoception and proprioception, about trauma-informed approaches. Carly absorbed everything like a sponge. She stayed late after class to ask questions. She completed assignments in her car during her lunch break. She watched recommended videos on her phone while eating dinner, standing at her kitchen counter. And slowly, carefully, she began implementing what she learned. She started leaving visual schedules in the rooms where Mia spent time, simple pictures showing what would happen next. She created a quiet box filled with sensory items and hid it in the sunroom where Mia could access it. She learned which cleaning products had the least offensive scents. The changes were subtle enough that Vanessa didn't notice, but Mia did. The little girl began seeking Carly out more frequently. She started bringing her treasures to show Carly, not for praise, but for witness presence. She hummed more, which Carly now understood meant she felt safe. On Friday of the 3rd week, Carly arrived home to find an email from Dr. Kozlov. "Your observation journal is exceptional. You have a natural gift for this work. Have you considered pursuing this professionally?" Carly read the message 3 times, something warm and unfamiliar blooming in her chest. No one had ever told her she had a gift for anything. She looked around her tiny apartment, at the peeling paint, the space heater that barely worked, the stack of medical bills on her counter. Then she looked at her notebook, filled with notes about Mia. Maybe she didn't have to be invisible forever. Maybe she could become someone who mattered, someone who helped people like Mia be understood. But first, she had 7 more weeks of training to complete, and a secret to keep. The first real problem came on a Tuesday morning in mid-October. Carly had just finished mopping the foyer when she heard raised voices from Marcus's study, a room she rarely entered because he was almost never home during her shift. But today he was there, and so was Vanessa, and their argument carried through the heavy oak door. Another therapist. "Vanessa, we've tried 6 different approaches. Maybe we need to accept..." "Accept what?" Vanessa's voice was sharp as broken glass. "That our daughter will never be normal. That she'll never talk, never go to a regular school, never have friends. I'm saying maybe we're making her worse. She seems more anxious every month, not less. That's because you're never here. You have no idea what I deal with every single day. The meltdowns, the refusals, the stares from other parents." Carly quickly moved away, her chest tight. She'd heard versions of this argument before, but never so raw. Never with Marcus actually suggesting they stop the endless parade of interventions. She found Mia in the sunroom, curled into the corner behind a potted palm tree. The little girl had her rabbit pressed against her face, rocking hard and fast. Her breathing came in small, rapid gasps. Carly's training kicked in immediately. She sat down on the floor about 6 feet away, making herself small and non-threatening. "Hey, Mia, I see you found a good hiding spot. That corner looks really safe." She kept her voice barely above a whisper. Sometimes when grown-ups use loud voices, it makes our bodies feel uncomfortable. That's okay. You're allowed to feel however you feel. Mia's rocking didn't slow, but her breathing evened out slightly. Carly pulled out her phone and opened a white noise app, something Dr. Kozlov had recommended for overwhelming moments. She set it to play gentle rain sounds, placing the phone between them. They sat like that for 20 minutes. Carly didn't try to fix anything or move Mia or coax her out. She just existed in the space, a calm presence. Eventually, Mia's rocking slowed. Her hands loosened their grip on the rabbit. And then, something new. She reached out and pushed the phone slightly closer to Carly. It took Carly a moment to understand. Mia wanted the rain sounds to continue, but she wanted them quieter. She was communicating a preference. "You want it lower? I can do that." Carly adjusted the volume. "Better?" Mia's hand made a small patting motion against the floor. Once, twice, yes, that was yes. Carly's heart soared. This was what Dr. Kozlov called emerging communication. Mia was developing her own way to express herself, and Carly was learning to read it. The moment shattered when Vanessa appeared in the doorway, her makeup slightly smudged, her professional composure cracking at the edges. "There you are. Mia, we need to get ready for—" She stopped, noticing Mia's state. "Oh God, not again. How long has she been like this?" "She's actually doing much better now," Carly said carefully. "She just needed some quiet time." Vanessa's laugh was brittle. "Quiet time, right, because that's going to prepare her for the real world." She crouched down, reaching for Mia. "Come on, sweetie. We have your speech therapy session in 45 minutes. Mia's body went rigid. Her hands flew to her ears. "Mrs. Westfield," Carly said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. Maybe today could be a rest day. "She seems really overwhelmed." "I don't pay you for parenting advice, Carly." Vanessa's voice was ice. "I pay you to clean." The words hung in the air like a slap. Carly felt her face flush hot with shame and anger, at herself for overstepping, at Vanessa for dismissing what Mia clearly needed, at the whole impossible situation. Vanessa somehow got Mia to her feet and guided her from the room. Mia didn't make eye contact with Carly as she left, but her hand reached out slightly in Carly's direction. A goodbye, or maybe a plea for help. Carly sat on the sunroom floor long after they'd gone, her hands shaking. That night in class, Dr. Kozlov discussed caregiver burnout and the importance of support systems for families with autistic children. "Many parents are doing their absolute best in systems that fail them," Dr. Kozlov explained. "They're told their child is broken. They're sold expensive interventions that promise to fix their child. They're exhausted, isolated, and grieving a future they thought they'd have. Our job isn't to judge them, it's to offer better alternatives." James, the special education teacher, raised his hand. "But what if the parents won't listen? What if they keep using harmful approaches?" "That's the heartbreak of this work," Dr. Kozlov said quietly. "You can't force change. You can only plant seeds and hope they grow. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't." Carly thought about Vanessa, her designer clothes, and her desperate eyes. The way she spoke about Mia like a problem to be solved rather than a person to be understood. But she also thought about the smudged makeup, the trembling hands, the brittleness in her voice. Vanessa wasn't a villain. She was drowning. After class, Carly approached Dr. Kozlov as she packed up her materials. "Can I ask you something?" "Hypothetically." Dr. Kozlov looked up, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Go ahead. If you knew a child who needed help, but the family was using approaches that weren't neurodiversity affirming, what would you do?" "Are you asking as a student or as someone in an active situation?" Carly hesitated. "Hypothetically," Dr. Kozlov set down her bag. "Hypothetically, I would document everything. I would build trust slowly. I would model better approaches without directly criticizing what's being done. And if I ever witnessed actual abuse or harm, I would be legally obligated to report it." She paused. "But subtle influence in a daily caregiving role? That can be incredibly powerful. Small changes ripple outward, even if the family doesn't know you're making those changes. Especially then." Dr. Kozlov studied her. "Carly, I don't know what situation you're navigating, but I see how seriously you take this work. That matters. Just remember, you can't save everyone. And you can't sacrifice yourself trying." The following week, Carly implemented a new strategy. Instead of directly contradicting Vanessa's approaches, she began leaving educational materials lying around, casually, as if by accident. An article about sensory processing differences left on the kitchen counter. A printout about alternative communication methods tucked into a magazine in the living room. A research study on the long-term effects of forced compliance therapy bookmarked on the family computer. She had no idea if Vanessa would read any of it, but it was something. Meanwhile, Mia's communication attempts grew bolder. She started using the patting gesture more frequently. 2 pats for yes, pushing away for no. She'd bring Carly specific items to indicate what she needed. The rabbit meant anxiety. A smooth stone meant she wanted to sit quietly. A particular wooden block meant she wanted Carly to stack things with her. It was a language only the two of them spoke. One afternoon, while Vanessa was out at a charity luncheon, Carly set up something Dr. Kozlov had taught them about in class, a feelings board. She printed pictures of different faces showing emotions and attached them to a piece of cardboard with Velcro. When Mia drifted into the kitchen, Carly showed her the board. "Sometimes it's hard to know what we're feeling," Carly explained. "These pictures can help. If you want, you can point to how you feel, or not. Whatever you want." She expected Mia to ignore it, to treat it like another adult attempting to force interaction. But instead, Mia stepped closer. Her hand hovered over the board, fingers trembling slightly. Then she pressed her palm against the picture of a face with tears. Sad. Carly's throat constricted. "You're feeling sad?" Mia's hand didn't move. She kept it pressed there, her whole body tense with the effort of communication. "Thank you for telling me," Carly whispered. "That's really brave." "It's okay to feel sad." Mia's hand slowly lifted. Then she pressed it against another picture. Her face with a slight smile and closed eyes. "Calm. You want to feel calm?" Carly asked. 2 pats on the board. "Yes." "Okay, let's figure out what helps you feel calm." Carly pulled out the sensory items she'd been quietly collecting. A soft brush. A weighted lap pad she'd made from rice and fabric. A squeeze ball, the noise machine app. Together, they tried each item. Mia rejected most of them. But when Carly placed the weighted lap pad across her legs, something shifted. Mia's shoulders dropped. Her breathing deepened. 3 minutes later, she was asleep on the kitchen floor, the lap pad still across her legs. Her rabbit clutched to her chest. Carly sat beside her, watching the rise and fall of her small chest. This tiny person who'd been failed by so many systems, who'd been treated like a puzzle to solve instead of a human to understand. She pulled out her phone and took a photo, not of Mia, but of the feelings board. Evidence of communication, proof that Mia had so much to say if someone would just listen. That Friday, Carly's mother called. "Baby, I got the bill from the specialist. Insurance denied part of it again." Her mother's voice sounded tired in a way that made Carly's chest ache. "I know you're stretched thin already, but how much?" $1,200. "I can set up a payment plan, but I'll figure it out, Mom, don't worry." After she hung up, Carly stared at her bank account. Between the training course, rent, her mother's medical bills, and her car's recent breakdown, she had $43 to her name. Payday wasn't for another week. She thought about asking for a raise. But after Vanessa's sharp reminder that she was hired to clean, not to parent, she knew that conversation wouldn't go well. She thought about quitting, finding a job that paid better. But then, who would understand Mia? Who would learn her language? Carly put her head in her hands and let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then she washed her face, made a cup of instant coffee, and opened her course materials. She had 2 more assignments due this week. She had a child who needed her. She had a secret to protect. The money would work itself out. It had to, because for the first time in her life, Carly was doing something that mattered, and she wasn't about to stop. Halloween decorations appeared throughout the Westfield estate in late October. Tasteful orange velvet pumpkins and cream-colored candles that smelled like cinnamon. Vanessa had hired an event coordinator to plan Mia's 8th birthday party, scheduled for November 3rd. The theme was Enchanted Garden, complete with a professional photographer, a balloon artist, and 20 invited children from Mia's therapeutic preschool. Carly knew it was going to be a disaster. She'd been working at the estate for over a year now, attending Dr. Kozlov's training for 6 weeks, and she'd learned enough to recognize the warning signs. Mia had been increasingly dysregulated as the party preparations ramped up, more withdrawn, more prone to shutting down completely, barely eating even her safe foods. The morning of the party, Carly arrived to find the backyard transformed into something from a fairy tale. White tents billowed in the breeze. Tables draped in pale pink linens held elaborate floral centerpieces. A bounce house shaped like a castle dominated one corner of the lawn. It was beautiful. It was also Mia's worst nightmare. Carly found the birthday girl hiding in her bedroom closet, wedged between hanging dresses, her hands pressed over her ears, even though the house was still relatively quiet. The party didn't start for 3 hours, but Mia already knew what was coming. "Hey," Carly said softly, sitting cross-legged outside the closet door. "Big day, huh?" No response, not even humming. That was bad. I know parties can be really overwhelming. Lots of people, lots of noise, lots of things that are different from usual. Carly pulled out her phone and opened the feelings board image she'd saved. She held it where Mia could see it if she chose to look. "Want to show me how you're feeling?" For a long moment, nothing. Then Mia's hand emerged from between the dresses and pointed at the screen. The scared face. Then the angry face. Then the sad face. All three. That makes sense, Carly said. All those feelings at once. That's really hard. She thought about what Dr. Kozlov had taught them about giving children agency. What if we made a plan? Something that might help you feel a little more in control? Mia's hand made the yes gesture against the closet door. 2 soft pats. Carly's mind raced. She couldn't cancel the party. Vanessa would never allow it. But maybe she could create some scaffolding, some supports that would help Mia survive it. Okay, let's make you a safety plan. She grabbed a notebook from Mia's desk and started sketching. First, we'll set up a quiet space in your room. When things get too much, you can come here. I'll put a sign on the door so people know it's your private space. She drew a simple picture of Mia's bedroom with a "Do Not Disturb" sign. Second, we'll use the feelings board. When you need to leave, you can show me the overwhelmed face, and I'll help you get to your quiet space. No questions, no convincing you to stay. You're in charge of when you need a break. Mia's hand appeared again, this time resting briefly on Carly's knee. A gesture of trust that made Carly's eyes sting. Third, I'll be nearby the whole time. If you need me, just look for me. I'll be wearing my blue cardigan so you can spot me easily. She showed Mia the rest of the plan. Pictures of ear defenders for noise, sunglasses for bright light, and a small bag of sensory items Mia could keep with her. When she finished, Mia emerged from the closet slowly, like a turtle testing the air outside its shell. For the first time that morning, she looked at Carly's face. Really looked for almost 2 full seconds. Then she picked up her rabbit and carried it to the bed, beginning her usual ritual of arranging her special objects. A coping mechanism, a way to regulate, Carly exhaled. It wasn't much, but it was something. By noon, the house was chaos. Caterers rushed through the kitchen. The balloon artist set up his station on the patio. Vanessa floated through the preparations like a conductor trying to orchestrate a symphony. Her smile bright and brittle. Marcus had actually shown up. Though he immediately retreated to hover near the bar the caterers had set up. Nursing a whiskey despite it being barely afternoon, Carly had transformed Mia's room into a sensory-friendly sanctuary. Blackout curtains drawn, white noise machine running, weighted blankets arranged on the bed, and a basket of Mia's favorite objects within reach. She'd put a simple sign on the door, "Mia's quiet space, please knock first." At 1 o'clock, guests began arriving. Children in pastel party dresses and tiny bow ties spilled into the backyard with their parents. The noise level rose exponentially, squealing, laughing, the tinny music from the bounce house generator. Mia lasted 18 minutes. Carly watched her deteriorate in real time. First, the stimming increased, hands flapping rapidly, rocking back and forth. Then she started retreating, pressing herself against the fence at the far edge of the yard. Vanessa kept trying to guide her toward the other children, her smile frozen in place, her voice bright with forced cheer. "Mia, sweetie, look! Your friends from school are here. Don't you want to say hi?" Mia's hands went over her ears. Her mouth opened in what Carly recognized as a silent scream, the kind where the distress was too big for sound. Carly moved quickly, intercepting before Vanessa could push further. "Mrs. Westfield, she needs a break. She just got here." She needs a break," Carly repeated, more firmly than she'd ever spoken to Vanessa. "Please." Something in Carly's tone must have penetrated, because Vanessa stepped back, her professional mask slipping to show something raw and desperate underneath. "Fine, take her. I'll handle the guests. Carly led Mia inside, moving slowly and keeping her body language calm. She didn't touch Mia, just stayed close enough that the little girl could follow her presence. They made it to the bedroom, and the moment the door closed behind them, Mia collapsed. Not physically, she didn't fall, but something in her just gave up. She crawled under the bed and curled into the smallest ball possible, her rabbit pressed against her face, her whole body shaking. Carly's heart shattered. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a complete nervous system shutdown. She lay down on the floor beside the bed, staying outside Mia's hiding space, but close enough to be felt. "You're safe," she whispered. "You did so good trying. That was so brave. But you don't have to try anymore. You can just be here. I'm not going anywhere." She started humming, the same melody Mia often hummed, the cartoon lullaby. After a few minutes, she heard Mia's breathing start to match the rhythm. They stayed like that for over an hour. Outside, the party continued without the birthday girl. Music played. Children screamed with delight in the bounce house. The photographer captured moments that would never include Mia. Eventually, Mia crawled out from under the bed. Her face was blotchy and red, her eyes unfocused. In that way, Carly had learned, meant she was completely overwhelmed. But she was breathing normally again. She walked to her feelings board, which Carly had propped against the wall, and pressed her hand against a new emotion. Exhausted. "Yeah," Carly said softly. "That was exhausting. You used up all your coping energy." Mia nodded. An actual nod, a gesture Carly had never seen her use before. Then she did something that made Carly's breath catch. She walked over to where Carly sat on the floor and leaned against her. Not a hug, not quite. Just the solid presence of her small body against Carly's side, seeking physical comfort for the first time. Carly stayed perfectly still, afraid to break the moment. "Is this okay?" she whispered. 2 pats on Carly's arm. Yes. They sat together as the party sounds drifted through the window. After a while, Mia's breathing evened into sleep, her head heavy against Carly's shoulder. When Vanessa finally came to check on them 2 hours later, she found them exactly like that, Mia asleep against Carly, both of them on the floor, surrounded by sensory items. "The party's over," Vanessa said quietly. She looked utterly defeated. The other parents kept asking where she was. "I told them she wasn't feeling well." Her voice cracked. "I spent $12,000 on a party my daughter couldn't even attend." Carly chose her words carefully. She did attend. She tried really hard. She just couldn't sustain it because she's broken, Vanessa whispered and started to cry. Real tears, not the polite dab at the corners kind, but ugly, exhausted sobs. "I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've tried everything. Every therapy, every intervention, every specialist. And she just keeps getting worse." This was the moment. Carly knew it with absolute certainty. She could stay silent, stay in her lane, keep being invisible, or she could risk everything. "Mrs. Westfield," she said softly, "what if Mia isn't broken? What if she just needs something different than what she's been getting?" Vanessa looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "What are you talking about?" Carly's heart hammered. "I've been taking a course. About autism. About different approaches that focus on understanding rather than changing." The words tumbled out faster now. "Mia communicates all the time. She's been telling us exactly what she needs. We've just been trying to teach her our language instead of learning hers." "A course?" Vanessa's voice was sharp again. "What kind of course?" "Autism support therapy. At the community center in San Jose." Carly braced for anger, for immediate dismissal. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you. But I wanted to help Mia, and I didn't know how else." "Show me," Carly blinked. "What?" "Show me what you've learned." Vanessa wiped her eyes, her business executive composure sliding back into place. "Show me how she communicates. Show me what I'm missing." So Carly did. She showed Vanessa the feelings board, the sensory tools, the visual schedules. She explained stimming, sensory processing differences, the concept of presuming competence. She demonstrated how Mia used gestures and object-based communication. Vanessa listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When Carly finished, Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, My daughter feels comfortable enough to fall asleep on you. She won't even let me hold her most days." It wasn't an accusation. It was grief. "That's not about love," Carly said gently. "It's about approaches. You can learn this too. You're her mother. That connection is already there. You just need different tools to reach it." Vanessa looked at Mia, sleeping peacefully for the first time all day. "Will you teach me?" Carly's throat tightened. "Yes, starting tomorrow. I want to know everything." It wasn't forgiveness for keeping secrets. It wasn't gratitude. It was desperation from a mother who'd finally hit the wall and was willing to try something, anything different. But it was a start. As Vanessa left the room, she paused at the door. "Carly, thank you for seeing her." After she was gone, Carly let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Mia stirred slightly against her shoulder but didn't wake. Everything had just changed, and Carly had no idea if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the biggest mistake. The next morning, Carly arrived at the Westfield estate to find Vanessa already awake, sitting at the kitchen island with her laptop open and 3 empty coffee cups beside her. She looked like she hadn't slept. Hair in a messy bun, no makeup, still wearing pajamas at 7 in the morning. Carly had never seen her like this. "I've been reading," Vanessa said without preamble, gesturing at her screen. "All night. About neurodiversity affirming approaches. About sensory processing. About how ABA therapy can be traumatic." Her voice was hoarse. "Why didn't anyone tell me this? Why did every doctor, every therapist, every specialist tell me we needed to make her more compliant, more normal?" Carly set down her cleaning supplies slowly. "Because that's what the system teaches. That autism is something to fix instead of something to understand. I've been hurting her." Vanessa's hand shook as she reached for her coffee. "All this time, I thought I was helping. The therapists told me consistency, repetition, structured interventions. They said if we just pushed hard enough, she'd break through. But I was breaking her instead, wasn't I?" "You were doing what you thought was right," Carly said carefully. "With the information you had, don't," Vanessa's voice cracked. "Don't make excuses for me. I'm her mother. I should have felt that something was wrong. I should have listened when her body was screaming at me." She closed her laptop with shaking hands. "So we start over. Today. You're going to teach me everything." Carly hadn't expected this, the complete openness, the willingness to be taught by her housekeeper. But she recognized the desperation in Vanessa's eyes. She'd seen it in other parents during Dr. Kozlov's classes, the ones who finally realized there was another way. "Okay," Carly said, "but first you need to sleep. You can't learn anything running on empty." "I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face yesterday. The way she just shut down because of a party I planned. A party that was supposed to make her happy. The party was planned with love," Carly said gently. "That matters. You just didn't have the right information about what Mia needed. Now you do." They started with observation. Carly had Vanessa simply watch Mia for an entire morning without trying to redirect, correct, or engage her. "Just watch. What do you see?" Carly asked as Mia arranged rocks in the garden, organizing them by color and size with intense focus. "She's lining things up. The ABA therapist said that's a stereotype behavior we need to interrupt." "Forget what the therapist said. What do you see Mia doing right now?" Vanessa watched more carefully. "She's peaceful. Her face is relaxed. She's humming." "Exactly. She's regulating her nervous system. This isn't a behavior to eliminate, it's a coping strategy that helps her feel safe in a chaotic world. When we interrupt it, we're taking away her tools." Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. "So when I used to take the objects away and tell her to focus on me instead, you were flooding her system, taking away the thing that helped her manage overwhelm, then demanding she perform under stress." "Oh my God." Vanessa pressed her hands to her face. "I've been torturing my own daughter." "No," Carly said firmly. "You've been following expert advice that turned out to be wrong. There's a difference. But now you know better, so you can do better." They watched Mia create an elaborate spiral pattern with the rocks, her small hands precise and sure. When she finished, she stepped back and made a satisfied humming sound, deeper, more resonant than her usual tune. "She's proud of it," Vanessa whispered. "She made something beautiful and she's proud." "She creates art all the time," Carly said, "with rocks, sticks, her toys. She's been trying to share her world with us. We just weren't paying attention." The real breakthrough came 3 days later, during what would have normally been Mia's occupational therapy session. Vanessa had cancelled it. The first time she'd ever cancelled a therapy appointment without immediately rescheduling. Instead, the three of them sat on the floor of the sunroom. Carly had brought her course materials, and she walked Vanessa through the basics of alternative communication. "Mia might never use verbal speech," Carly explained, "but that doesn't mean she has nothing to say. There are so many ways to communicate: gestures, pictures, typing, sign language. The key is finding what works for her and presuming she has complex thoughts and feelings, even if she can't express them in traditional ways." "Can we try something?" Vanessa asked. She looked at Mia, who was playing with a kaleidoscope nearby. "Can we see if she'll communicate with me using the feelings board?" Carly pulled out the laminated board. "Remember, no pressure. If she engages, great. If not, that's okay too. She gets to choose." Vanessa took a deep breath and moved closer to Mia, not too close, respecting her space. "Mia, honey, I have something I want to tell you, and I'm wondering if you want to tell me something too." Mia's hands stilled on the kaleidoscope. She didn't look up, but her body language shifted, alert, listening. "I'm sorry about your birthday party," Vanessa said, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't understand what you needed. I made everything too big, too loud, too much. That wasn't fair to you." Silence. But Mia's rocking had slowed. Vanessa placed the feelings board on the floor between them. "I was wondering how you felt about your birthday. If you want to show me, you can. But you don't have to. Nothing happened for almost a minute." Carly held her breath, watching. Then Mia set down the kaleidoscope and crawled closer to the board. Her hand hovered over it, trembling slightly. She pointed to the scared face, then the overwhelmed face. Then, and this made both Carly and Vanessa's eyes fill with tears, she pointed to the loved face. "You felt scared and overwhelmed," Vanessa whispered, "but you still felt loved." 2 pats on the board. "Yes." Vanessa's composure shattered. "Oh, baby, you are so loved. So incredibly loved." She didn't try to touch Mia, didn't push into her space, just let the tears fall freely. "I'm going to do better. I'm going to learn your language. I promise." Mia looked at her mother, really looked, for 3 full seconds. Then she went back to her kaleidoscope, but she moved closer to Vanessa. Close enough that their knees almost touched. It was the closest Vanessa had been to her daughter in months, without Mia pulling away. That weekend, something unprecedented happened. Marcus actually engaged. He'd been watching from the margins as Vanessa and Carly worked together, his expression unreadable. On Saturday morning, he found Carly in the kitchen and said, "Can you teach me too?" Carly nearly dropped the mug she was washing. "Teach you?" "Whatever you taught, Vanessa. I want to learn it." He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. "I've been a terrible father. I told myself it was too hard, that I didn't know how to connect with Mia, so I just opted out. Buried myself in work." His jaw tightened. "But watching Vanessa actually try, actually change, I can't keep hiding. That's not fair to any of them." So Carly found herself giving her second crash course in autism understanding. This time, to a tech millionaire who'd built an empire on innovation, but couldn't figure out how to reach his own daughter. Marcus was different from Vanessa, more analytical, asking technical questions about sensory processing and neural pathways. But underneath the intellectual curiosity, Carly saw the same desperate love. "She used to look at me when she was a baby," Marcus said quietly. "Before she was 1, she'd smile when I came home. And then something shifted, and it was like she forgot I existed. I thought," he stopped, cleared his throat, "I thought she didn't love me anymore." "She loves you," Carly said. "She just shows it differently." And the world got overwhelming, so she had to put all her energy into surviving it. There wasn't bandwidth left for the things that used to come easily. So how do I reach her now? You learn her language. You meet her where she is. You stop trying to pull her into your world and start entering hers. That afternoon, Marcus sat on the floor of Mia's playroom, something Carly had never seen him do. He didn't try to engage Mia directly. He just built a tower of blocks nearby, narrating quietly what he was doing. I'm stacking the red block on the blue block. Now the yellow one. This one's wobbly. There we go. It's steady now. Mia ignored him for 20 minutes. But then, so subtly, Carly almost missed it. She pushed a green block in his direction. Marcus stared at it like it was a miracle. Should I add it to your tower? Carly whispered from the doorway. She's inviting you to play. Marcus picked up the green block with shaking hands and placed it on top of his tower. Thank you, Mia. That was a perfect choice. Mia pushed another block toward him. Then another. They built together in silence for 15 minutes. No forced conversation. No demands for eye contact. Just quiet parallel play, slowly becoming cooperative. When Mia finally wandered away to do something else, Marcus sat frozen, tears streaming down his face. That was the longest she's ever played with me. The longest she's been near me without trying to leave. That's because you respected her way of connecting, Carly said. You entered her world instead of demanding she enter yours. Marcus wiped his eyes roughly. I've wasted so much time. No, Carly said, echoing what she'd told Vanessa. You're here now. That's what matters. By the end of that week, the Westfield household had transformed in ways both visible and invisible. The harsh overhead lights were replaced with softer, adjustable ones. The white noise machine became a staple in multiple rooms. Visual schedules appeared throughout the house. The endless parade of therapy appointments was cut in half. Most significantly, the family started eating dinner together, modified to accommodate Mia's needs. Dim lighting, quiet conversation. No pressure for Mia to sit still or eat specific foods or participate in ways that felt impossible for her. The first night they tried it, Mia lasted 6 minutes before needing to leave. Vanessa's instinct was to feel disappointed, but Carly gently reminded her 6 minutes is 6 minutes more than 0. That's progress. By the fourth night, Mia stayed for 15 minutes. She didn't eat much, but she was present. She listened to her parents talk. And once, when Marcus told a story about something funny that happened at work, Mia made a sound that might have been a laugh. Vanessa reached across the table and squeezed Carly's hand. Thank you, she mouthed, but Carly knew this was just the beginning. The real work, the hard, daily, unglamorous work of changing patterns and learning new ways, was only starting, and she had 3 more weeks left of her training course. 3 more weeks of knowledge to bring back to this family that was finally ready to receive it. She thought about Dr. Kozlov's words. Small changes ripple outward. The ripples were starting. And Carly was right at the center, watching them expand. 3 weeks after the birthday party disaster, Carly sat in Dr. Kozlov's office for what was supposed to be a routine check-in. It had become anything but routine. You look exhausted, Dr. Kozlov said, studying her with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. More than usual, Carly laughed, but it came out hollow. I'm working my regular job, taking your course, and now I'm basically running an in-home training program for 2 adults who are trying to unlearn 8 years of harmful approaches. So yeah, exhausted covers it. Tell me what's happening, so Carly did. She explained how the Westfields had transformed from employers to students, how every evening after her official shift ended, she stayed for hours teaching them what she'd learned. How Vanessa texted her at midnight with questions. How Marcus wanted to video call during his lunch breaks to discuss sensory strategies. How they'd asked her to attend Mia's IEP meeting at school to help them advocate for better accommodations. They're paying you for this additional time, I assume, Dr. Kozlov asked. Carly looked away. They offered. I said no. Why? Because, Carly struggled to articulate it. Because it feels like if I charge them, I'm just another service provider, another person they're paying to fix their daughter. But I'm not trying to fix Mia. I'm trying to help them understand her. Dr. Kozlov leaned back in her chair. Carly, that's admirable. It's also unsustainable. You can't pour from an empty cup, and right now you're running on fumes. I'm fine, you're not. And I'm worried you're heading toward burnout. Dr. Kozlov pulled out a tissue box, which confused Carly until she realized she was crying. When had she started crying? What else is going on? The floodgates opened. Carly told her about her mother's worsening health, the medical bills piling up faster than she could pay them, about her car breaking down last week, forcing her to Uber to work at $50 a day, about eating ramen for dinner 4 nights in a row because she couldn't afford groceries, about lying awake at 3 in the morning doing mental math, trying to figure out which bill she could skip this month. And the worst part, Carly's voice broke. The absolute worst part is that I love this work. I love seeing Mia blossom. I love watching Vanessa and Marcus finally connect with their daughter. I love feeling like I'm actually making a difference in someone's life. But I'm drowning, and I don't know how to ask for help without ruining everything. Dr. Kozlov was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "What if I told you there was another option?" The job posting was for a family support specialist position at a private practice that focused on neurodiversity-affirming autism support. The pay was more than double what Carly made as a housekeeper. Full benefits, student loan repayment assistance for people pursuing degrees in special education or related fields. They're looking for someone with practical experience, which you have now, Dr. Kozlov explained. Someone who understands the work from the ground up. I'm on their advisory board. I could recommend you. Carly stared at the posting on Dr. Kozlov's computer screen. It felt like looking at someone else's life. I don't have a degree. I didn't even finish community college. The position requires completion of our certification program, which you're finishing next week, and a year of documented experience working with autistic children. You've been working with Mia for over a year. You meet the qualifications, but I'm just what? A housekeeper? Dr. Kozlov's voice was sharp. Carly, you've accomplished more with one child and her family in 3 months than some certified professionals achieve in years. You have instincts that can't be taught. That matters. Carly's hands shook. What about Mia? What about the Westfields? If I leave, who's going to? They'll hire another family support specialist, possibly from this same practice. Someone who can continue the work you've started. Dr. Kozlov leaned forward. Listen to me carefully. You cannot sacrifice yourself on the altar of one family's needs. Yes, you've been instrumental in their growth, but your value doesn't end with them. You have the potential to help hundreds of families. Don't limit yourself out of misplaced guilt. The word sat heavy in Carly's chest. Part of her knew Dr. Kozlov was right, but another part, the part that remembered Mia falling asleep against her shoulder, the part that had witnessed Vanessa's transformation, the part that had seen Marcus cry over a shared block tower, that part felt like leaving would be betrayal. Can I think about it? Of course. But Carly, don't think too long. You're running out of runway here. That night, Carly's car officially died. Not broke down, died. The mechanic delivered the news with genuine sympathy. The transmission was gone. The engine had problems. The repair costs would exceed the car's value. You're better off getting something new, he said. Or, newer. This one's done. Carly sat in the mechanic shop's waiting room after he left, staring at the floor. No car meant no way to get to work. No way to get to her mother's apartment when she needed help. No way to get to class next week for the final certification exam. She pulled out her phone and looked at her bank balance. $127.34. Then she looked at the job posting Dr. Kozlov had emailed her. The salary figure seemed impossible, fantastical, the kind of money that would solve every problem currently strangling her. But it would mean leaving Mia. Her phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Mia asked for you today. Well, she brought me your blue cardigan and patted it twice. I knew what she meant. It made me cry. You've taught us so much. Thank you for seeing our daughter when we couldn't. Carly's vision blurred. She was so tired, so incredibly tired. Another text came through, this time from her mother. Sweetheart, I know you're stretched thin. Don't worry about the next specialist payment. I'll figure something out. Her mother was 70 years old and living on disability. There was nothing to figure out. There was just Carly, trying to hold together a life that was rapidly falling apart. She opened the job application portal and stared at the blank fields. Then she closed it and called an Uber to take her home. The next morning, Carly arrived late to the Westfield estate, something that had never happened before. She'd had to take 2 buses and walk the final mile because Uber surge pricing made the trip cost more than she could justify spending. Vanessa took one look at her and said, "What happened?" "My car died. I'm figuring out the logistics." Carly tried to smile. "I should still be on time moving forward. I'll just need to adjust my route." "Carly, that's not sustainable." I'm fine, Mrs. Westfield, really." But she wasn't fine, and they both knew it. Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway, his laptop under his arm. He looked between them, reading the situation with the same analytical precision he brought to business deals. "How much do you make working here?" "Marcus," Vanessa started. "It's a relevant question." He turned to Carly. 18 an hour. Carly nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. "And you've been staying 3 to 4 extra hours most days, training us, teaching us, attending meetings, creating materials." Marcus was calculating something. "That's easily 15 extra hours a week you're not being compensated for 3 months. I didn't ask for—" "I know you didn't. That's the problem." Marcus set down his laptop and crossed his arms. "Here's what's going to happen. Effective immediately, your hourly rate is $45. You'll be retroactively compensated for all training hours over the past 3 months. And you'll use the company car service whenever you need transportation." Carly's mouth opened and closed. "I can't accept that." "Why not?" "Because I'm the housekeeper. You're paying me to clean, not to—" "You stopped being just the housekeeper months ago," Vanessa interrupted gently. "You're Mia's advocate, our teacher, part of our family support system. The work you're doing is worth far more than what we're paying you." "Let us correct that." Tears burned Carly's eyes. "This feels like charity. It's not charity. It's paying you what you're worth." Marcus's voice was firm. "If you'd been a contracted autism specialist from the beginning, you'd be charging us $200 an hour minimum." "We're still getting a bargain." Carly thought about the job posting, about Dr. Kozlov's warnings, about her mother's medical bills and her dead car and the ramen in her cupboard. She thought about Mia, who'd started using the feelings board independently now, who'd initiated play with her father 3 times last week, who'd begun making more eye contact, not because she'd been forced to, but because she felt safe enough to try. "Okay," Carly whispered. "Okay." Vanessa pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the accountant now. You'll see the back pay in this week's deposit." After she left the room, Marcus studied Carly with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You were thinking about leaving, weren't you?" There was no point lying. "Someone offered me a position. A family support specialist job. Better pay, benefits. A real career. You should take it." Carly's head snapped up. "What?" "You should take it," Marcus repeated. "Not now, not yet, but eventually. What you're doing here, it's important. But you're capable of so much more than one family." He smiled slightly. "Though I'd be lying if I said we won't miss you terribly when that day comes. I haven't even applied. You will. Because you're too talented to stay invisible forever." Marcus picked up his laptop again. "But maybe now you can breathe long enough to figure out what you actually want, instead of just trying to survive." After he left, Carly stood in the empty kitchen, her mind spinning. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt something unfamiliar, hope. 6 months after the birthday party that changed everything, Carly stood in the Westfield sunroom, watching something she'd once thought impossible. Mia sat at a small table with an iPad, her fingers moving deliberately across a communication app. Beside her, a specialist from the Assistive Technology Center waited patiently. They'd been working together for 3 months, and today was the big reveal. Mia's parents would finally hear what their daughter had been typing. Vanessa and Marcus sat on the couch, holding hands so tightly their knuckles were white. Carly stood behind them, her own heart hammering. The specialist smiled. "Mia, Would you like to share what you've been working on? Mia nodded, that gesture she'd started using regularly now. Her fingers flew across the screen with surprising speed. Then she turned the iPad around and pressed the speak button. A computerized voice filled the room. I love my family. I love rocks and patterns and how the light looks through my kaleidoscope. I am smart even though I don't talk with my mouth. I have always been listening. I've always had things to say. Thank you for learning my language. Vanessa's sob was immediate and visceral. Marcus's face crumpled as he pressed his hands to his eyes. The specialist beamed proudly, but Carly watched Mia, who was looking directly at her, holding eye contact for 5 full seconds, the longest she'd ever managed, and making the sign they'd developed together. 2 fingers touching her palm. Thank you, Carly signed back, tears streaming down her face. You're welcome. The certification ceremony was held at the community center on a warm April evening. 20 students gathered to receive their certificates in foundations in autism support therapy. Family members filled the folding chairs, camera phones ready. Carly's mother sat in the front row, despite the pain it caused her to travel. Beside her, unexpectedly, sat Vanessa, Marcus, and Mia. When Carly had told them about the ceremony, she'd expected polite congratulations. She hadn't expected them to actually come. Mia wore her noise-canceling headphones and clutched her rabbit. But she was there, present, choosing to be in an overwhelming space because it mattered to someone she cared about. Dr. Kozlov called each student forward individually. When she reached Carly's name, she paused. Carly Brennan has demonstrated something rare in this field, an intuitive understanding of neurodiversity paired with the humility to constantly learn more. She came to this course as a housekeeper, hoping to help one child. She's leaving as an advocate who's already changed an entire family system. I have no doubt she'll change many more. The applause felt surreal. Carly walked to the front on shaking legs and accepted her certificate. As she turned to face the audience, she saw her mother crying proud tears. She saw the Westfields standing, clapping hard. She saw Mia stimming with excitement, her hands flapping in that way Carly now understood meant joy. This was what worth felt like. This was what mattering felt like. She'd been invisible for so long. She'd forgotten she could be seen. 2 weeks later, Carly sat across from the director of the Neurodiversity Support Center, a woman named Dr. Rachel Torres, who'd reviewed her application with Dr. Kozlov's glowing recommendation. Your practical experience is impressive, Dr. Torres said, reviewing Carly's documentation. Most candidates come to us straight from academic programs. They have the theory, but lack the nuanced understanding that comes from real-world application. You have both. I'm still planning to finish my degree, Carly said. The Westfields are helping fund it. Part-time in special education? Excellent. Though I'll be honest, we'd want to hire you regardless. Dr. Torres leaned forward. We need people who understand that autism isn't a puzzle to solve. That communication comes in infinite forms. That behavior is always communication. You already know these things in your bones, so what would the job actually involve? You'd work with families in their homes, similar to what you've been doing with the Westfields. But you'd have the backing of our full clinical team, occupational therapists, speech pathologists, psychologists. We'd train you in additional assessment tools and intervention strategies. You'd also help us develop training materials for other family support specialists. The salary she named made Carly's breath catch. Not just comfortable, transformative. Enough to move her mother into a better place. Enough to finish her degree without drowning in loans. Enough to finally breathe. There's one thing I need to know, Dr. Torres said carefully. The Westfield family, would they provide a reference? And more importantly, how would they feel about you leaving? Carly had been dreading this question since she'd submitted the application. I haven't told them yet. Why not? Because they've become more than employers. They're friends, I guess. And Mia, her voice caught. Mia trusts me. What if leaving sets her back? Dr. Torres's expression softened. Carly, attachment is beautiful, but healthy attachment includes the ability to maintain connection through transition. If you've truly taught this family well, they'll have the tools to continue without you. And Mia will learn that people can care about her even when they're not physically present every day. That's an important lesson too. The word settled into Carly's chest. True and painful at once. She told the Westfields on a Saturday morning, all of them gathered in the kitchen where so much had changed over the past months. Mia was at the table with her iPad, half listening while she organized colored pencils by shade. "I've been offered a position," Carly said, her voice steadier than she felt, "at the Neurodiversity Support Center. As a family support specialist." Vanessa's face showed surprise, then understanding, then something that might have been loss. "That's the job your instructor mentioned months ago. You applied." "I did. They offered it to me yesterday." "I wanted to tell you first before I accepted." Marcus set down his coffee carefully. "When would you start?" 3 weeks. If you take it?" Vanessa shook her head. "Carly, of course you're taking it. This is your career, your future. We'd never stand in the way of that. But Mia will be fine," Vanessa said firmly, though her eyes were wet. "Because you taught us how to support her. You gave us tools we never had before. That doesn't disappear when you leave." Marcus nodded. "We'll find someone to replace your housekeeping duties. And we'll hire another support specialist from the center. Maybe they can come once a week. Help us maintain the approaches you've taught us. Plus," Vanessa added with a slight smile, "something tells me you'll still check in on us. You're not the type to just disappear." Carly's throat was too tight to speak. She nodded. Across the table, Mia had stopped organizing pencils. She was looking at her iPad, her fingers moving. After a moment, she turned it toward them and pressed speak. "Carly is my friend. Friends don't stop being friends because they have different jobs. I will miss seeing her every day, but I am proud of her. Thank you for teaching my parents to understand me." The room went silent, except for Vanessa's quiet crying. Carly crossed to where Mia sat and knelt beside her chair. "Can I hug you?" "If you want." Mia considered for a moment, then nodded. She leaned into Carly's embrace stiffly at first, then relaxed slightly. It lasted 5 seconds before she pulled back, exactly as much as she could tolerate, but it was enough. Carly's last official day at the Westfield estate was on a bright morning in early May. She'd spent the previous week training her replacement, a kind woman named Sarah, who specialized in autism support and came highly recommended by Dr. Torres's center. The house felt different now. Not cold and perfect, like it had been when she'd first arrived. It felt lived in, warm. There were visual schedules on the walls, sensory items in baskets throughout the house. Photos of Mia smiling, actual genuine smiles, displayed alongside the professional family portraits. Vanessa had organized a small goodbye gathering. Nothing overwhelming, just the family, Sarah and Dr. Kozlov, who'd become a mentor and friend. They sat in the garden where Mia had arranged so many rocks over the past year. Someone had created a permanent rock spiral in one corner, a monument to all those early attempts at communication that no one had understood. "I want to say something," Marcus said, standing with a glass of sparkling cider. 13 months ago, a young woman applied to be our housekeeper. She was quiet, efficient, invisible. We thought we knew what we were hiring. He looked at Carly, his eyes serious. "We had no idea we were inviting a miracle into our home. Carly didn't just clean our house. She helped us clean out years of harmful approaches, misconceptions, and fear. She taught us to see our daughter, really see her. And in doing so, she gave us our family back." Vanessa stood beside him. "You could have stayed invisible. You could have just done your job and gone home. But you saw a child who needed advocacy, and you made yourself visible. You risked everything to help someone who couldn't ask for help. That's the definition of courage." Carly wiped her eyes. "I just paid attention. That's all. I just actually looked at Mia and listened to what she was trying to tell us." "That's not all," Dr. Kozlov interjected. "You presumed competence. You believed she had something to say before you had any proof. That's the foundation of this entire approach, believing in someone's worth and capability, even when the evidence isn't obvious yet. You did that instinctively." Mia had been quiet throughout the speeches, sitting in her characteristic sideways angle. But now she picked up her iPad and typed. When she pressed speak, everyone leaned in. Before Carly, I was alone, even when people were with me. She learned to be quiet with me, to exist in my space without needing me to be different. She taught my parents the same thing. Now I'm not alone anymore. That is the best gift anyone has ever given me. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. That evening, as Carly packed up her car, a used Honda Civic she'd been able to afford with her back pay and new salary, she found a card tucked under her windshield wiper. Inside was a check from Marcus and Vanessa for $10,000 with a note. For your education fund. Invest in yourself the way you invested in our family. With love and gratitude, the Westfields, underneath, in wobbly handwriting that Mia must have struggled to produce. Thank you for seeing me. Carly sat in her car and cried until she couldn't cry anymore. Then she drove to her mother's apartment, showed her the certificate and the job offer letter and the check, and watched her mother's face light up with pride. You did it, baby, her mother whispered. You found what you were meant to do. I didn't find it, Carly said. It found me. I was just willing to pay attention. 6 months later, Carly had 12 families on her caseload now. 12 children who communicated in 12 different ways. 12 sets of parents learning to see their children through new lenses. She thought about Mia often. They video called every Sunday, Mia using her iPad to type messages, showing Carly her newest rock collections, her latest kaleidoscope patterns. She was thriving in a new school designed for neurodivergent learners. She'd made a friend who also communicated via AAC device. Vanessa had started a local parent support group for families with autistic children, focusing on neurodiversity-affirming approaches. Marcus had donated significant funding to autism research and advocacy organizations that centered autistic voices. The ripples had spread wider than Carly ever imagined. Late one evening, after a particularly challenging day with a new family, Carly sat at her desk reviewing her notes. Her tiny studio apartment had been replaced by a modest one-bedroom. Her walls were covered with certificates, photos of the families she'd worked with, and one framed image, a rock spiral in a garden, with Mia's small hands arranging the final stone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Torres. Working late again? Go home, Carly. The work will be there tomorrow. But Carly smiled and stayed a little longer. Because somewhere out there, a child was trying to communicate in a language no one understood yet. A parent was drowning in systems that promised to help but only caused harm. A family was fragmenting under the weight of unmet needs. And tomorrow, Carly would help translate, would help build bridges, would help make the invisible visible. She'd learned from the best teacher possible, a little girl who never spoke a word but had everything to say. All Carly had to do was learn her language, and now she was teaching others to do the same. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.